We are live at the Radisson Hotel for the BBNJ workshop and how Trinidad can ratify and sign the agreement. With me this morning is Senator Dr. Kennedy Swartsingh, Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development. Minister, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Minister, you issued a clarion call in your remarks about taking responsibility and a whole of society approach. Would you like to touch on what your ministry is doing to help us get to a place to be able to sign and ratify the BBNJ agreement?
Well, as you know, the BBNJ agreement will deal with it from a legalistic, holistic perspective. But at the end of the day, anything we do from a collective has to also be implemented by individuals, by persons in society. And I think for far too long, we think of these things as existential, as outside there, as existing in some stratosphere, that many of these agreements don't have any real world or real life consequences or implications. And so I think we need to do a better job of getting people engaged and making sure that they understand that these climate issues are not just large things about emissions and and all these sort of very large topics.
Yes.
That if we could find a way, for example, to as I try to do, rather than drive all the way everywhere. If I can walk, I walk.
Yes.
Or rather than just allow water to just waste when I'm not using it and turn on the tap. Rather than, you drive through Trinidad and Tobago. Energy is such a cheap ingredient, and as I said, I've lived in other places in the Caribbean where energy is not as cheap.
Yes.
We leave all the lights on and we just go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those are kinds of things, and so we need to find practical things. And of course, for the high seas, one of the things that I am very concerned about is that, we talk about the sea being the blue economy, about how much economic activity is generated based on the ocean space around us. I'm a simple fellow.
Yeah.
And I approach these things from simply the fact that we have to take care of the planet, whether it be what is on Earth as well as what is in the sea.
Yes.
And we need to find better ways to be more responsible custodians.
Yes.
And that means that I think, we just can't go down the islands and litter the place and throw things overboard.
Yeah.
As much as it, or when we're driving a car, I've seen people just fling KFC boxes outside of the window. We just have to stop that kind of. We can't. The places sometimes, and not that we take it for granted. We treat it with disdain.
That's right. Yes.
And that for me is an irksome thing, especially because I've been fortunate to live in many parts of the Caribbean.
Yes.
And I see how other persons recognize, not only from a tourism perspective, that we need to make sure and provide a better product, but they recognize the fact that they too, their families. As I said, I grew up I grew up in Cedros.
Yes.
Sorry, my father grew up in Cedros, but I have family living in Cedros. My kids grew up in Barbados, and we love to go to the sea. We go to the sea almost every weekend.
Yeah.
We love to go and swim, and so it has become part of my life. So for us here, it can't be just that we not just take it for granted, but it can't be that we just sort of not recognize the social engagement that we must have as people, looking out for what God has blessed us with.
Yes. And I have to attest, Minister, I actually saw you walking through Independence Square one lunchtime on your way to a meeting. And I thought to myself as a young person, I said, that's very refreshing that we have the current government understanding the importance of just being able to practice what they preach. It's very refreshing being someone of the younger generation. That is so right, what you're saying in terms of us taking the collective and individual responsibility, because I always say that we say that, okay, it's one person just throwing a bottle, a piece of paper out your window. But when you have 1,000 persons doing that one thing, it adds up. Yeah. And I think our response as well in terms of in how we collectively, if one person picks up one piece of paper and we have 2,000 persons do that, pick up the piece of paper, the impact we would make. what would you say to those who traverse the seas daily, our fisher folk, those who depend on the marine environment as a form of their livelihood, in terms of their collective responsibility as well? Because sometimes we see fishermen, fisher folk dumping fuel, damaging our coral reef system, fishing with the endangered species. What would you say to them from the government approach?
Well, again, part of what I think we need to do, especially with some of these agreements as well, is we need to have better forms of enforcement.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think at this stage, sometimes people feel out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
And therefore nobody sees and they could do. That's why I am very big on people being self-policed.
Yes.
You know, but at the same time, I think for far too long, as I said, I went down the islands the other day, and I've seen places where derelict boats are being, you know, and people are just, things seemingly to happen without any form of supervision or guidance or policy. And I've asked some of the agencies, Town and Country, the IMA, to take a closer look at what is happening down there. But I also think that the issue mightn't be only with, because our local fisher folk, they are doing the best that they can, but in sometimes not ideal circumstances. I think we have bigger issues with the wider fishing business when it comes to how, I mean, you went looking at David Attenborough, how trawlers are impacting on the seabed. And so there are some other very deeper issues that I think we have to collectively look at. But those are things that you know, I'm hoping some of our agencies will be more equipped or take a greater active role in looking to see how we can bring some of that to the attention of the national community.
So at the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, I know you recently assumed duties there, so of course there's a myriad of things that you are getting done. But are there any programs, policies that are currently in place where the public can come and there can be a partnership with the ministry? So the ministry isn't doing all the work on its own, but we have that public government partnership. Are there anything engaged at this point in time?
Well, quite a lot actually. So what we have done over the last 6 to 8 weeks is that we have engaged with all the stakeholders and all the agencies that are connected, whether it be United Nations, the UN, all the UN agencies, the IFIs, IDB, World Bank, so the chambers of industry and commerce, civil society. We have had actually a significant amount of engagement just in the last 3 days. I've done about 3 speaking engagements. So this government under this Prime Minister has created what we call an open door policy. We want to engage with everybody. We want to hear what everybody is saying. We respect people's views. We may not always agree. We might differ on the approaches, but there's a real intent to make sure that people understand that this government under the Honorable Prime Minister is here to serve and not be served. So we need to listen and there's a significant policy orientation in that we think that government's role is to facilitate, to coordinate, to legislate, to develop policy, but we need to engage with civil society and business and other interested groups to implement. So that's kind of partnering arrangements that we have started that in the ministry. You know, it is taking time for us to get to all the agencies. But we have significantly begun that engagement. And so our policies, again, it's an open door policy. We want to hear from everybody. Right now, many of my colleagues are doing pre-budget consultations across all their respective constituencies. We are also talking about engaging with people to hear from them how they feel about certain important legislations as well. So the Prime Minister has begun the Monday night meetings. We think it's you know, under this Prime Minister, it's a determined policy to keep going back to the people, keep listening to people, and get away from this thing about that when we get in the government, that we are the ones who are the repository of everything. We are not. We are actually the servants of the people. And we have to be able to engage with them, listen to them, and understand their perspectives, even as we decide and determine where we go as a nation.
I really must applaud the government's approach for consultation with the public. Many times younger persons of society, they feel as though that they were not properly consulted, or they were not able to voice their opinions when we are going to implement legislation, carry bills to Parliament. So I must say, on behalf of young people, we appreciate and we sincerely hope to partner with the government. But something you said is very striking to me as a young person, and something I agree on, is that it cannot be left alone for the government solely to bring that change. Yes, the government will legislate and bring the laws, and we are thankful for that. But it has to be a whole of society approach.
Yes.
We have to work together. Many times you hear persons saying, well, why does the government do this or do that? The government can make the policy, but we as citizens of this great country that we have, and we're privileged to call home, we have to take that onus on us.
Well, always remember, and I will tell you as a former religious person, that there are many kinds of sins, but there are sins of omission and sins of commission.
Yes.
And very often it's not what we do, but it's what we fail to do.
Yes, that is so true. Minister, thank you so much for joining us, and we are so glad to have you on board as a partner.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.